Howdy, y'all. Something a little different today. I'm at work. Not blacksmithing today. Um, I'm sitting at my dining room table because there ain't no dining happening here. Uh, this is where I have my leather set up. And I thought it'd be neat just to, have a chat as we do and, just show y'all a regular work day for me. It's a mess. It's a terrible mess. I hate to even show y'all this table. Uh, my leather station stays real messy. A big part of that, the reason being that my nephew, he lives with me, and he's a crafty boy. He's not a cleaning boy. So we're making some Nessmuk style ditty bags today. I make and sell quite a few. It's a pretty popular item. Get these lined up a little better. Right now I just have two pieces of leather. It's the same piece, just cut in half. It is recycled upholstery leather. You can see it has these little marks. That's where this was put through a machine and punched. And they just like punch out the pieces to make whatever, car seats and furniture or whatever else they're doing. So I'm going to clamp it together. Doing this very simple way. There's illustrations from his book. If any of y'all are unfamiliar, I've talked about Foxfire a whole lot on the channel, but another book I really enjoy is Woodcraft and Camping, I believe is the official title. But it is a book by a man named George Washington Sears. His pen name was Nessmuk. And it's just a camping book. He was a wilderness guide. He worked at a lodge that rich folks would go to get out in the woods and have an experience. Something's still happening today. I have a bit of a low opinion of like farm hunts. I just think it's a little different shooting a public land or private land, but unmaintained wild deer as opposed to a farm deer. I don't like doing farm deer. But so that's what he did. He would take folks out. He was an avid fisherman. Avid fisherman. I don't know the validity of this, but possibly the original inventor of the pork rind frog lure, if anybody's done any degree of bass fishing and knows about that. But he wrote this book just describing the gear he would take into the woods with him. He told a bunch of hunting stories. He was very specific about what he took with him. He had what was at the time a pretty basic butcher knife that he would take. He had a custom-made double-bit hatchet. For those who don't know, it's a hatchet that had like the axe that has two heads to it. I never understood why he wanted a double-bit hatchet. Apparently a lot of people didn't, but he wanted it. Because normally the purpose of a double-bit hatchet, you'll have one side that is very, very sharp, and that's your primary cutting implement. And then the other side will be much more blunt, but that's where you turn your axe around, and that's your root buster. Having that in a hatchet form seems strange. Me personally, if I'm going hunting or whatever, like I'm out in the woods, I'd rather have that additional tool of having a flat back to my axe, so then it's a hammer. That being said, I live down here in the swamp, and truth be told, I'd rather have a machete than any of it. That's just how my environment is. So see, but this shape right here, I got these two pieces cut out the same. This one I'm gonna cut about 3/4, 1/4 off rather, maybe a third. But so Nessmuk famously, he had his very specific axe that he liked. Cool, good for him. He had it's a specific style of knife, and like I've had people order them from me. It's a good little knife. It's honestly just a pretty basic like butcher knife of the time. mark on the inside of this leather. The knife's cool. Like people are into it. And he had he had his fishing gear, he had his particular rifle, he had all this, that, and the other, and he described like he liked nesting pots to cook in, which awesome. That's, if you ever do any camping, that's the way to go. But he had he called it his ditty bag, which is a Navy term, but he called it his ditty bag. He apparently wore this like a little leather bag around his neck, and it just kept it on his person at all time. And described the stuff that went into it, and it was pretty cool. He kept an emergency kit basically. It was he would keep some fishing gear in it. He would have needles, and the fishing line could double as thread. I believe he kept his homemade insect repellent because he was a very big proponent, and I am too, of what he called his bug dope or mosquito dope, which we also call it that down here. It'll ruin your camping trip in a hurry to be getting eaten up by skeeters. It just will. I'm very big on insect repellent myself. But so he would keep his insect repellent. He would keep a little bit of first aid stuff. He keeps like medicine in there. He keeps some fishing gear in there, sewing thread, and that's a big thing too. Is like being able to repair your stuff if something breaks while you're out camping. Huge. And he wanted to have there's more that went into it, but it was like he described it as a very small bag, and it was a very compact little kit. Wore around his neck, so he always had it. And I don't believe he said this in the book, but having done that sort of stuff myself, like you end up maybe ever in the water, like he was a big fisherman, he fished off canoes. Like it wasn't hard to take that bag and just tuck it in your shirt, and you would have some stuff there that you could use. I think he maybe also kept some fire starting stuff in there, but either way, that's what we're doing today. He put an illustration in the book, and it's something like this. It's this kind of half moon little pouch thing, and this is how I make them. It's also reminiscent of a Kentucky squirrel rifle pouch that I saw many years ago, many years ago, and I liked it. I liked the design of it. It was very it was a economical use of leather, like the way it's shaped, like making these two ovals and having that's the flap. It's a very economical use of the leather, like you don't have a lot of waste to it. And I just like it. I carried one for quite a long time, to be honest with you. Back when I did more squirrel hunting, I don't get to do as much hunting anymore. That's part of the reason I'm so into foraging. My access to land is a little more limited these days. I don't hunt family land very much anymore, and the closest public land is an hour away, which it isn't that bad. But when you're full-time single parent to an autistic 11-year-old, you kind of gotta call your shots, So we don't do near as much hunting, squirrel hunting anymore. But when I did, I liked that style of pouch. It was bigger, it was like a shoulder bag thing. But we about to get loud. This is my grandpa used to sit right there while I was in here working. I don't got time for that. I'd be in here working, and he would be just mad as fire because he wanted to get in there, and he would watch Gunsmoke and Bonanza and all them types of westerns, and I'd get in here and I would have to do this part. What I'm doing right now is I'm punching the stitch holes because that's how working leather is. They sell needles like the moccasin needles is what they're called. A moccasin needle will the camera more steady. Moccasin needle, it'll go in and out of leather. You can just sew it like you would fabric. It's a little harder on your hands to do though. When you're just doing leather, the thing to do is to pre-punch your holes. And so I have this awl, which is actually a vintage ice pick, but it's a very good leather punch. And I just carved out one of these, this little mallet. We call it my noggin clonker. And he would jump up every time I did and be mad as fire at me for making this noise. But, I was at work. That's just how it was. So that's all you do. And normally, on a bigger thing, I would clamp these pieces of leather together. But it's small enough I can hold it with my wrist while I'm doing this. And this is how you do it. You have to go around the entire thing. Every stitching hole has to go through both pieces. You get this part done, and then, you know, you can do it in whatever order. You got to figure out, working leather, you have to do it in a sequence, or you're going to give yourself problems later on. I got to figure out what kind of closure I want on this. And like sometimes it'll be just a button. I do snap buttons sometimes. I'm out of snap buttons, so I'm not doing that today. I make buttons out of bone and deer antler. That's probably my favorite, is taking like the very end of a tine of deer antler and making a button out of it. I just happen to like the way that looks. I think today we're going to go super simple, and I'm just going to contrive up just a leather toggle. But what you got to do is, once you decide what your closure is going to be, you got to put that in first, because it is a pain in the butt to not think about what you're doing, sew a bag together, and then have to go back and reach a hand inside of it. And I got big old hands, so that's difficult for me. Reach a hand inside of it and try to sew in and out, or like, you know, install stuff in and out inside the bag. You're turning it inside out, back and forth. It is just a pain in the butt. I'm just now seeing my dear nephew. I have this. This is actually an old, like when you were in elementary school and they had like the chunk thing that cut paper. That's what this is. I got it at a thrift store, and I've used it as like a workstation for doing my leather stuff for years now. I'm just discovering my nephew has driven some piece of metal into it and cut the head of it off. I don't know what on earth he was doing, but I almost poked my hand. But so you just go around, and to me, this is the majority of the work. The sewing is like, you know, a lot of the times what I'll do, in the summertime, my dining room, for some reason, it gets hotter than the rest of the house. It is hotter than the kitchen with the stove on. Don't know why, but you will sit here in this dining room and just sweat yourself to death. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll get right here and do all my prep work, get all my pieces cut, all my holes punched, get everything together, and then I'll go sit in the living room, put on a movie or something like that, and sew in there where it's cooler. I'm not going to do that today since I'm sitting here with y'all. I started leather working, I believe I started really doing leather when I was 20. And so I've been doing this for quite a long time. This is 16 years. And it's fun. It's just, you know, for my business, it's wonderful. I can, you know, I don't have to be doing one particular thing. I do several things. You know, some days you just don't feel like getting out and doing like the really, really hard manual labor. Being able to get out and, you know, sit down right here and just do this. This is just wonderful. It's pleasant. I'm sitting here, my heater's going. I can talk to y'all while I'm doing it. It's a blessing being able to do this. And then also, you know, because of my hunting and trapping, I have the ability to, you know, tan out my furs and make buckskin and, you know, what have you. Well, this is the other part of it. You got to learn how to do this bit. You know, I could just sell fur, and I wouldn't do it. I live in the deep south, and the further south you get, the less your fur is going to be worth. Our critters just have thinner fur. They don't have to grow very thick fur. So like a coon down here is worth way less than a like coon in, you know, Minnesota, say, wherever. That's why you get folks up there in Alaska that they're fur trappers, and they make a lot of money doing what they do. But as you can see, we've got all the way around. Taking a different, also a vintage ice pick, but I mean, they work great for leather punches. I also have some tools that I make myself. Yeah, like I forged that one. That one's it's for reaming stuff out. It's a drill. Put this stick through it and, you know, crank on it, and you can do a lot of stuff with that too. But so then you take You take a different leather punch. This one's thinner. Go through each hole and just round it out a little bit and stretch it out a little bit. It's still skin, despite all the chemical processes herein. This is still a piece of animal skin. It will stretch. It'll work with you. And this is like very processed leather. Again, this is recycled upholstery leather, so there ain't no telling what these folks done this thing. But it's a resource, though, you know, and anytime you can recycle, it's, you know, that's cool. And that's all they do, too. You want to get into doing this, don't bother getting online or anything, buying these. I got a friend who did that mess, that he decided he wanted to be a leather worker. He wanted to quit his job and he wanted to do leather. He wanted to do like I did. Cool. And he went out, he started buying stuff. He had not sold one little thing and was like hundreds of dollars into like equipment and stuff. You ain't got to do it. You could take like a claw hammer, a $1 claw hammer, a nail, and a needle and thread and a pair of scissors, and you can make something like this. You do not need a whole lot of specialty tools. But an easy way to do this is to, again, get something sharp. Like I like these old ice picks. I sell, you know, leather punches. I sell awls that I forge. But you just need a sharp, pointy thing. I like to use, you can get them at Walmart. It is called doll maker's needles. They're just these very long, stout needles. That's what I prefer to use. I use button and craft thread. It's like $1 and change at Walmart. You cannot break this with your fingers. Yeah, it's 50 yards for like $1.25, something like that. Pile of it. I use the doll maker's needles, the button and craft thread. It's just much stronger than regular thread. Comes in a bunch of colors. I use sometimes I use wax on it. Sometimes I don't. I'm not going to today. I just don't need to. But then you go to craft stores, like your Michaels, your Hobby Lobby, what have you, and they sell it by the pound, by these like a couple of pound bags of, they call it leather remnants is what they say. And it's like, I think this big bag, and I've made a pile of stuff out of this big bag of leather I have here. I think it was $6, and you get a lot of it comes about like this. Pieces about like that. Sometimes you'll get like a more square, rounded piece. Just kind of depends on the bag. The bags are all different. Usually you'll get 1 or 2 pieces of like a natural color. And like, you know, your tans and your browns, which is like, people like that better. I like it better. And then in the middle of it, you end up with a lot of pieces of just like black. Black just doesn't sell as well, but you end up with quite a lot of it. I think we may do a contrast color for the closure. Yeah, I think we're going to do contrast color. So another thing that you have to do, doing leather, this is a weird old little scrap piece, but all I'm doing with it is I'm just going around the edge. Stomach's growling. It's getting about lunchtime. What time is it? Yeah, it's definitely lunchtime. You go around the edge. You can already see what's happening. This is how you make leather lace. Now they sell, and you can make these contrivances that you only do a little bit of this, and then you can stick it in this like hole, and it has a razor blade in this little contraption, and then you can just pull it through, and it'll just like shear off leather lace, which is convenient. I don't do enough lace to justify building one at the moment, but this is just another part to it. And like when you get around that point, there'll be a little like turn in it. You end up with a turn in your lace, but then you can stretch it, and you can I work it over the side of just the table, and you can get it straight enough for your purposes. Like it ain't never going to be straight as like a, you know, machined piece that's been boiled and steamed and stretched and cut off a bigger piece of leather in the first place. But you can work it and get it to do what you want it to do. Like right now, like what I'm doing with this, I don't, maybe one more round about this and I'll be done. Because all I'm going to do is I'm going to put like a little cross piece on the flap, because I think that'll look cool, and put a loop on the front in the same style of like a 17th century tobacco pouch. And that way you can just pull them leather strings through that loop and that'd be it. So I don't need very much of this at all. I think it will look nice though, this contrasting color. I hesitate to say colors. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the channel before, but I am wildly colorblind. I mean, like almost completely colorblind. So I always hesitate to say colors. That's why, like way back when, you watch some old videos, like I either wear earth tones or like neon colors back then, and that was for the reason is like that's what I could see. I'm told it actually makes me a better sight hunter, though. That'll be plenty for what we're doing. I'm told it makes me a better sight hunter because your eyes compensate. Let me see what I'm doing. Just getting that straightened out. Piece cord. Your eyes apparently compensate. And so, because I can't see color very well at all, apparently my eyes have developed better depth perception and the ability to pick out shapes and patterns. And when you're like, squirrel hunting, small game hunting, something's up in the trees, something's, in the brush, you do better. Like that's what you're looking for. You're not necessarily looking for color. You're looking for shapes and movements and that sort of thing. So lucky me. Because we'll say Alabama is a hunter's playground. I mean, like, well, we have good hunting here. It's difficult hunting though. It is like a jungle down here. Like you are always in very thick brush. Like you get out in the field and like, that's why people like curate these fields to where like you can shoot your deer there. But that's kind of the whole thing is like, if you don't hunt in one of those curated fields, if you don't hunt a corn plot or whatever, or like a baited field, you're in the woods, in thick woods. And so like running like a hardwood ridge is a lot more difficult down here. That's just how that is. But so, let me figure out about where I want to be with this. Put me a couple of marks. And that's where my strap is going to go. Right here. That would have been another one my grandpa would shot up, start cussing at me. Take just a little utility razor knife and just make those little holes into slits just to make life a little easier on me running it through there. And all I'm going to do, I'll run through this way. Get on in there, aggravating cuss. Run it in. Run this side in. As you can see, I have patterns for a couple things. I generally don't use patterns. I just kind of freehand it. I enjoy to do that. All right, and so we have a loop right here. All I'm going to do is pull it through enough to where I can tie like an overhand knot in it. We only want about that much sticking out. I'm not going to sit here and bore y'all sewing the entire thing together. I'll do that because I'm noticing this video is about 25 minutes long already. But I'll show y'all how I make the closure anyway. So I'll take... pull on through. There. And just tighten me down a little overhand knot, nothing fancy. You ain't gonna see it anyway. It's gonna be on the inside. All right. So now I can pull that back tight like that. Trim tag ends. And so now the front of this pouch just has a little loop. You would find this, there's artifacts you can find, but it is, it's neck pouches like this. They would generally be more just a rectangle shape. And they would have that type of loop, but the flap would go over top of it. It would have like a little hole cut in it to where this loop right here would stick out. And what you did is, that was where you put your pipe tobacco, and you took your pipe and like stuck it through right there. So you had your pipe right here, it held the bag shut, and when you're ready for a smoke, you'd be able to just open it up. I make quite a lot of tobacco pouches too. That's a big part of my business. I normally don't advertise too much on here aside from just putting my business name on the description, but I do run an Etsy store. A lot of cool stuff on there. A lot of gear for like historical reenactment. A lot of hunting and fishing stuff. Some taxidermy things. I do a lot of cool stuff there. So if you're ever interested, there's always, every single video is going to go to the description, and the first thing is going to be a link to my Etsy store. We have fun over there. So now I got another decision on how I want to do this. I think this is a little small of a flap to do this like cross thing I was talking about. So I think we're just going to go for just tassels with overhand, which will still look neat. I mean, it's going to come out looking historical. It's going to come out looking like something an old mountain man put together, because I'm from the swamp, not the mountain, but that's who's making it. Opening them holes up just a little bit more. You can buy professional leather punches that yeah, it's like a surgical punch. It's like a tube that's sharpened the whole way around, and it's like a cookie cutter. It cuts out. I've used those before, and like you can buy the ones like at the hardware store that's like, it has that, and like it's like a wheel, and like it's like pliers, and you just like tick tick tick. I break them every blame time I try to use them. I can't. I don't know. I'm too hard on them somewhere or another. I've never had one for more than a week, and those just get expensive at like $15 a pop or however much you find them for. So I learned to improvise as far as that went. They are fun. I reckon if you didn't do like the most leather work, if you're just kind of a hobbyist, well, it might work all right for that, but for my purposes, yeah, I'll have one for maybe a week, and then all of a sudden I've gone gorilla on it and squeezed on it too hard, and so then like it gets like off kilter, and the moment that leather punch is off kilter, it don't work. All right. So all I've done, sped that through, and again I'll take and turn get it lined up so it'll be pretty. I'll just turn an overhand knot there. Tighten that down good. Okay, so that's all that is a couple of strings hanging off of it. But then once I sew this together, get some holes lined up. Once I get this sewn together, what you'll do is you'll take these strings right here, these tassels, and be able to always difficult the first time. Again, this leather stretches. But that's how the bag will hold itself shut. And, you know, I'll work on the ends of them and make it a little more pretty, but just a quick little leather closure. And, you know, again, maybe put some beads or something on this. That makes it a little more authentic looking, authentic. But I'm going to sit here and sew this bad boy up, and I'll probably just use some of this rope right here for the neck strap. I just thought I'd sit down with y'all and just chat while I was working, show y'all some stuff to do, just, you know, share a couple tips and tricks for the leather craft. So I appreciate y'all joining me for this little video, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Y'all have a happy holiday.